asked and we answer. Alright, you didn't necessarily ask per se, but we've wanted to expand our budget watch coverage because honestly, it's one of our favorites. There are so many excellent hidden gems under $100 that it was extremely tough to compile our last budget watch guide. Inflation ripped through that price tier like the plague. When revisiting our favorites, we had an extremely tough time narrowing down our list, and we were forced to leave out more watches than we would have liked. So here we are, at it again with another budget watch guide. Only this time we're taking a look at a selection of great watches you can still procure for under $300. Since we already covered our favorites under $100, we'll focus more specifically on watches between $200 and $300. As always, this is but a small cross-section of our favorites, so if we missed any of your favorites, just drop us a link below. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, let's jump right in. There are homages and then there are reissues. Younger brands often fall prey to the former as they don't have an extensive back catalog of vintage references from which to source design cues for new releases. Timex, however, has swaths of iconic history dating all the way back to the 1850s and are no stranger to re-releasing or more accurately reissuing Timex references of yesteryear. Case in point, this funky 1972 reissue of the Timex World Time. Hovering around $180, the World Time 1972 reissue is built with heaps of character. Tapping into the vintage vein has proven successful across the horological world as of late, but few are resurrecting older models with such astonishing accuracy as Timex. Built into the Timex Model 42, on which this reissue is based, exists the very same silent tension bezel imprinted with a world's worth of cities, time zones, meant to act as a pseudo GMT feature. You're supposed to align your current time zone with the hour hand and then the rest should fall in place. There is a slight problem with the time zones not quite existing as they used to in the early 1970s, and as a very faithful recreation, Timex didn't update these changes. But if you are anything like us, you're probably looking at this reissue and are far more attracted to the case design than the actual pseudo GMT function. At a price point well under $300, this angular cushion case is extremely unique. On the wrist, it measures 39mm in diameter with a 41.5mm lug-to-lug and a 12mm thickness owed mostly to the dome sapphire and the tension bezel that surrounds it. Our model's wrist size is a hair shy of 8 inches for all the watches you'll see in this guide, and it clearly wears quite small, far smaller than the 39mm diameter dimension would have you believe. But if you like smaller reissues, you can thank the extremely compact lug-to-lug that feels most similar to how integrated units wear on the wrist. Under the dome crystal, which causes significant distortion of the minute track, seconds hand, and date window, the only notable difference between the M42 and the 1972 reissue is the elimination of the day date at the 3, streamlined to only the date, and the electric text above the 6 has now been changed to reflect the battery-powered quartz caliber tucked inside. Speaking of, Timex builds in a convenient battery compartment into the steel caseback for ridiculously easy swaps. Coming as no surprise, as Timex and quartz go together like rock and roll, the 1972 World Time has been updated with a quartz-powered movement, as have all recent and highly successful Q series vintage reissues alongside this release. Quartz is a big part in keeping the price point under $300, and Timex won't get any hate for doing what they have always done best anyway. Unlike their American Document series, the World Time is assembled in China, but Timex has partnered with the SB Foot Tanning Company out of Red Wing, Minnesota to craft this notably premium strap for a sub $200 watch. And yes, it's the very same tannery that supplies Red Wing boots with their leather. Moving on, our second pick is for anyone who's been looking for a sub $300 watch, or scratch that, even sub $200 watch, with a full stainless steel build from case to clasp with a reliable no-maintenance movement, and a great deal of versatility. What we're describing is essentially the perfect sub $300 go anywhere do anything watch, and in our opinion, one of the best is the full stainless steel Citizen Garrison. The Garrison is extremely classic, bright stainless steel with equal parts brushing and high polish across the case and bracelet, a high contrast black and white dial with large, highly visible Arabic numerals, a convenient day-date window complication at the 3, and most importantly, Citizen's proprietary EcoDrive technology packed inside. On the wrist, the Citizen Garrison measures up at 43mm, but before that scares you away, it maintains a very slim 10mm thickness, and it flies under the radar by hugging the wrist in a way that's atypical for a watch of this size. So for anyone with a wrist smaller than 7.5 to 7.25 inches, you'll be just fine. Now, if you want a one-watch sub $300 collection, the Garrison's case is a great bet with a mix of high polish around the bezel, the crown guards, and the sides, making it well suited for a night out. Balanced by mixing in just enough brushing on the top of the lugs and across the bracelet to make it rugged enough for casual use. You can easily wear this watch with a pocket tee and look the part. A sports watch meets weekender, if you will. Unlike our previous vintage reissue, Citizen in general uses a fairly modern design language, opting more often than not to build in flat sapphire instead of domed units. Same goes for the Garrison, plus it actually does a very nice job of minimizing reflection, so there has to be a decent amount of treatment to the glass in order to have it function as such. The monochromatic dial sits just a few millimeters below the glass and uses large white Arabic numerals to keep track of the time, with an inner 24-hour track and a 60-second chapter ring around the periphery, a set of sword-style hands, and a white frame day date situated at the 3 to the left of the push-bowl crown that affords about 100 meters of water resistance. This specific eco-drive caliber inside this Garrison is the J800, and the function is the same as most other eco-drive movements built into a wide range of Citizen's newer models, like the ProMaster series. If you purchase them brand new, they require a few hours of charging time, but once they top off, it's virtually impossible to get them to stop running even if you tried, as they're powered by any available light source, solar or artificial. For under $300, the bracelet and the clasp infrastructure is solid, well finished, and easily adjustable, although we did wish it built in some micro adjustment slots, or at least a few halflinks to really hone in the fit. There's an argument to be made that low-cost Bulova watches, and we'll define that as under $1,000, actually pack in far more value than their more premium counterparts. Want a few examples? How about the Bulova Lunar Pilot, Devil Diver, or Millships? Add to that list the field-inspired Bulova Hack, and I think we've proven our point. Hack referring to the ability of the crown when pulled out to adjust the time to hack or stop the seconds hand for uber-precise time setting, or in the case of World War II and World War I's use of field watches, uber-precise time coordination. The Hamilton Khaki Field is certainly the de facto field watch pick around $500 to $600, but have that and your options decrease dramatically. The Bulova Hack is one of the only modern field watches under $300 that serves up the same true-to-form military-inspired field watch ethos as those worn by actual soldiers in many of the world's largest wars. Affordable price point aside, the Bulova Hack is one of our favorite field watches, period. Why? Well, there are a number of reasons, like the tough-looking no-nonsense stainless steel case, the perfect size for accommodating a wide variety of wrists, a premium OD green leather strap, but chief among them is the dial character with its distinct vivid red ring of 24-hour Arabic numerals. A highly wearable 38mm on the wrist combined with a 47mm lug-to-lug and a near 13.5mm thickness almost make the Hack wear exactly the same as the Khaki Field Mechanical, which also uses a 38mm case diameter and a 47mm lug-to-lug, but does clock in significantly slimmer at 9.5mm. But let's be honest here, the case alone isn't why the Bulova Hack made the list. Just check out the composition and overall color scheme of the dial sitting underneath the double-dome sapphire. Inside the minute track, punctuated by rectangular markers, the red accents look incredibly tough. Plus, the contrast between the white and the red Arabic numerals goes a long way to bolster legibility. With the dial as packed as this, that's an important consideration and one beautifully executed. Unlike the Hamilton Khaki Field, the Bulova Hack opts to keep a notably vintage cathedral handset at the center and set with plenty of lume. Before we move on to the movement, the 30mm water resistance rating is slightly disappointing, especially for a field watch. The Hack uses the Miyota 82S0 caliber, providing a 21,600 bph beat rate and a solid 42-hour power reserve. At this price tier, it's solid and shouldn't receive any complaints for the price tag attached. Sure, it's not nearly as accurate as the Hamilton H50, but let's remind you it's less than half the price. Securing the Bulova Hack to our wearer's wrist is a premium OD green leather NATO with a set of matching metal strap loops and buckle hardware. We love that Bulova chose a leather option over a textile option. Not only does it make the watch feel more accurate to the time from which it was inspired by, but the leather is sure to wear in and hug the wrist with far more comfort than what a standard textile NATO could ever afford. Seiko 5s have been a bastion of affordability since day one. If you set aside $300 or less to spend on a new watch and are already considering Seiko, well done. A trusty Seiko will garner respect from even the most snobbish, elitist watch collectors and watch experts known to man. Not that you need their approval, but hey, all we're saying is that you can't go wrong with a Seiko. Literally any Seiko. And that Seiko we've chosen today as one of our best under 300 is the Seiko 5 Sports SRPE 63K1. There are dozens of sub-$300 Seiko 5s, sports watches, dive watches, field-style watches. This one, however, is one of the best all-arounders you can confidently wear in almost any situation and look damn good doing so. Let's start with a very standard, fully brushed 40mm stainless steel case. Compared to other Seiko 5s, this one is unique in that it's thick but doesn't use a bezel. Our other favorite under $300 is the SRPJ81, but its 36mm case size we deem just a touch too small to accommodate a wider variety of wrist sizes. Then you have the Seiko 5 divers, or the SKXs, which are also great options, and we also wanted to make mention of those as well. Seiko just released 4 new SKX 38mm models that sport great colors for summer, so make sure to check those out as well. Anyway, the SRPE63K1 is 40mm in diameter with a 44.6mm lug-to-lug and an 11.5mm thickness, and it maintains a few case construction cues that we really admire, like the offset push-pull crown at the fore offering 100 meters of water resistance. These Seiko 5s come in a few different dial colors. As you can tell, our top pick is the blue variant, which sports a subtle sunburst pattern emanating from behind the handset, alternating from a deep navy blue to a bright saturated blue in different lighting conditions. The SRPE63K1's dial isn't all that dissimilar from other Seiko 5 sports models like the SRPD series, in that it maintains the same bubbly marker shapes, no Arabic numerals, and spades of Lumibrite that glow for what seems like eons. A white day date at the 3 contrasts the richness of the dial background, and the arrow-shaped handset uses a seconds with a lollipop counterbalance that uses the exact same circular shape as the markers. Seiko builds in the trusty 4R36, which provides the SRPE63K1 with automatic winding capable of reserving up to 41 hours of power at any given time, with a mid-range 21,600 bph beat rate. The 4R36 is the day-date version of the 4R35, which is used in a huge variety of Seiko 5 models before the 36's release. Now Seiko uses the 4R36 in virtually every budget Seiko 5 sports model with a day-date. Securing the Seiko 5 Sports to the wrist is a matching blue nylon NATO with stainless steel strap loops and matching stainless buckle hardware. Super comfortable, super classic, no complaints here. Q Timex is a line that was recently, as of 2019, revived by Timex based on 70s era models. Q, of course, referencing the quartz-powered movements at the heart of all Q Timex releases. This recent release of the Q Timex GMT simply builds in the GMT into the latest Q Timex reissue, and it's one hell of a value under $300 with loads of nostalgia. If you're looking for an excellent travel watch but don't want to worry about the prospect of theft, the Q Timex GMT around $230 is the absolute best choice hands down. Now the Q Timex reissue, the non-GMT version, was almost a carbon copy of the late 70s original, but Timex did make a few changes with the new Q Timex GMT that builds off the 2019 Q Timex reissue, which was a standard 3-hander. The integrated barrel-shaped case is 38mm in diameter with a 12.5mm thickness and a very compact 44mm lug-to-lug, but no surprises there. It will wear small, perhaps even a touch smaller than the dimensions would suggest. It feels closer to a 37mm, but our wearer here maintains a wrist size just below 8 inches, so it definitely seems to appear smaller on the wrist, nonetheless. Like the recent Tissot PRX, the case styling is sharp, angular, and definitively 70s inspired, with a mix of vertical and horizontal brushing across the top of the main case and across the lugs, and high polish along the sides. A Q embossing on the push-pull crown keeps the quartz spirit at the forefront, but the crown itself is extremely small. Just above, however, is our favorite part of the build, the Pepsi tension bezel. It operates without any audible clicks, but maintains just enough pressure to hold it in place. That's the whole idea though, right? Well yes, but a friction bezel under $300 that operates exactly how it's supposed to without any play is easier said than done, and Timex executed well. We also love the domed acrylic. It seems like everyone's riding the domed wave nowadays, and there are no complaints from us. However, do expect some distortion in terms of the viewing experience. The GMT version of this quartz reissue is almost exactly the same as the non-GMT reissue, but it does change just a few line items. Those include a date window at the 3 as opposed to the day date of the 3-hander, and a piece of smiling text under the 6 marker letting us know about the caliber change. The 3-handed Q Timex reissue used the PC33 quartz, or a Japanese movement by Seiko. However, the addition of the GMT necessitated something else, and while Timex still uses a quartz caliber, it's Swiss, but unspecified. Timex also updated the mesh bracelet that came with the first 2019 Q reissue, or the arm hair catcher as folks have nicknamed it. The mesh was period accurate, but the design did irritate the wrist, so now we have a single-link stainless steel bracelet that almost goes even further to emphasize the whole integrated look. Alright, next up is one of our new favorites from a micro brand you probably heard of in passing, but may have never researched in any amount of depth: Dan Henry. Dan happens to be one of the world's most prolific watch collectors, and through that endeavor, created a micro brand by pulling inspiration from vintage watches in his collection to create his own venture. Each Dan Henry watch is named by the year in which it was inspired. For example, today we're looking at the Dan Henry 1962 racing chronograph, and it's a stunning sub-$300 tribute to racing's golden age, think Le Mans and the like. On his website, Dan speaks in the first person and provides a slew of first-hand information as to why he chose what he chose for each reference, and in our book, that makes picking up a Dan Henry even more memorable. This racing chronograph is an extremely classic 369 subdial layout, a striking high-contrast panda color scheme, and a set of very well-executed start-stop pushes at the 2 and the 4. Dimensionally, Dan Henry kept it classic at 39mm in diameter with a fully polished stainless steel case, a black tachymeter ring acting as a fixed bezel, and a set of barrel-shaped pushers hugging the push-pull crown at the 3 that offers about 50 meters of water resistance. Although the watches certainly speak a distinct design language inspired by vintage watches of all kinds, the best part about Dan Henry's operation is that the style is all his own. You can't take a complete Dan Henry watch and compare it to anything else. Take for example the twisted lugs. Sure, you could say Omega. Look elsewhere and it doesn't say Omega at all, it says Breitling or Heuer. On the wrist, it's 13.5mm thick with a 45.9mm lug-to-lug. So if anything, the 1962 wears just a bit smaller than the 39mm diameter would have you believe on paper. On the tough-looking case back, they built in a 3D embossed profile of the Maserati Tipo 60 birdcage, surrounded by a fully brushed ring with all the watch's technical specifications. For just over $260, the pusher action is surprisingly solid. In just a moment, we'll talk about the caliber that makes this possible, but before we do, let's touch on the dial a bit more. Under a double-domed K1 mineral glass treated with an anti-reflective coating, the classic chronograph subdial layout is almost as if the Hamilton Intramatic had an extra counter. The white color here is matte, while the black does have some reflectivity if examined closely. We also love the bright red racing accents of the timing hand and the second subdial. It feels incredibly sporty. Okay, now on to the mecha quartz employed for the watch's timing capability. Dan Henry built in the Seiko caliber VK63 mecha quartz movement, featuring a very smooth motion with the center chronograph hand and instant reset courtesy of the 4 o'clock pusher. The action, like we mentioned, is snappy and there's little to no lag when depressing the pushers. In other words, it feels like it could be a chronograph worth 2 to 3 times more than the sub-$300 MSRP. The nature of mecha quartz is that the quartz portion handles normal timing via the squared-off Dauphine-style hands in the center, while the mechanical aspect controls the chronograph functions. So the Seiko caliber is a hybrid, so to speak, offering decent accuracy and really tried-and-true machining via Seiko. Everything about this watch is a winner in our eyes, but one of the most well-executed components that ties the whole look together is the tangibly premium leather racing strap, ours here in a natural brown-orange leather. As a last note, most all of Dan's watches are under $500, and they offer plenty of options across a wide range of styles. Divers, dress watches, and other chronographs, with influences dating back all the way to 1900. Since we've covered plenty of EDC-friendly sub-$300 watches, we wanted to include one of our favorite dress watches under $300, and it's from a brand that often gets passed by, but should warrant reconsideration as they pack in excellent value in this price tier. And this particular dress watch is considered one of the best budget picks you'll be able to find anywhere. The Orient Bambino V.7 is, yes, one of the latest in 8 generations of Bambinos, each with different dial styles and colorways. For an all-around versatile dress watch that can be paired with all sorts of different outfits, the white-dialed V7 is our current Bambino of choice, and here's why. First, just take a look at the overall build quality. For around $270, the Bambino now uses a highly wearable, highly polished 38.4mm case with a set of sharp, delicate lugs, a knurled push-pull crown at the 3, and a beautiful exhibition case back framed by a gently sloping frame. The previous generation Bambino used a 40.5mm case, and although that would still be a highly wearable size as a dress watch for someone like our wearer here with a wrist size just under 8 inches, for the majority of buyers sizing down to a 38mm was the right choice, and it will certainly accommodate a wider range of wrists. With a very compact 44mm lug-to-lug and a 12.5mm thickness, it's pretty much the sweet spot for a dress watch. For under $300, you won't get sapphire on the Bambino. In its place is a domed mineral crystal protecting the dial, which does cause some distortion around the edges when viewed off-angle. Orient offers the Bambino V.7 in this bright white colorway, a stark black, and an off-white kind of cream color. In our opinion, the white is a classy option, but if your dress wardrobe necessitates a darker hue, go with the classic black. Now the dial is stark, and that's what we like most about it. And while some would quickly classify it as minimalist, we actually prefer classy. Take for example the sharp-plated Dauphine-style handset that ticks past the long, thin markers. There's more decoration here than what minimalism would typically call for, more sophistication. It's interesting that for a dress watch, Orient chose for the only dial text to read water resistant. as the Bambino V.7 only maintains a very modest 300 meters via a push-pull crown. Apart from the version 8 and their small seconds variants, you'll find this is the only text the Bambino employs other than Orient's logo under the 12, but it does come by way of a very beautiful script font, so at the end of the day, not really any complaints. Anyway, the faux alligator leather strap is extremely well made, comfortable, and matted, unlike many other Jess watches that use a similar, albeit glossy version. As our last pick, G-Shock has been a staple in the sub $300 price tier. Version after version have claimed icon status for rugged dependability and hyper-recognizable designs, like the infamous Casio and the 5600 series, which everyone knows and loves. As our last budget watch pick under $300, we've decided on the new 5600 series, the G-Shock Move, specifically called the DWH 5600-1. The G-Shock Move is the active man's 5600 as it uses 4 purpose-built sensors for health tracking built right into the steel case back. All the line items about the G-Shock Move are the same as the non-smart version, like the tough, shock-resistant 51.1mm squared-off case size, the black resin material, and the 200 meters of water resistance to name a few. So instead, we're going to focus on the Move features, because there's a laundry list of health and fitness-focused tools to tour. Using the same button infrastructure as the standard 5600, you can locate on the sides of the case, you can toggle between the watch's extensive catalog of features, which include a multi-sport mode for running and walking which displays distance, speed, pace, and other information, plus there's a built-in auto and manual lap function, training analysis and cardio load status, an activity log that stores up to 100 runs with up to 200 laps each and tracks your run's measurement time, distance, pace, running index, calories burned, energy source used, heart rate, maximum heart rate, cardio load, pitch, maximum pitch, and your stride. A wrist heart rate measurement between 30 beats per minute and 220 beats per minute, sleep measurement, 6 stages of sleep recovery status and autonomic nerve status, blood oxygen level measurement, breathing exercises, a pedometer or step count measurement via a 3-axis acceleration sensor with a step count display range of up to 99,999 steps with an automatic reset at midnight every day, and a life log, which is an overview feature that tracks your overall step count, calories burned, and activity time measurements to track your general health. What's more, all these features run off solar power like the standard 5600 and can connect to the Casio Watches app via Bluetooth in case you'd like to back up your health data to a mobile device for storage, or if you'd like to pair the watch for notifications from your smartphone about emails, texts, and calls. So as we said in our introduction, there's a whole horde of watches in the affordable sub $300 price tier, and these are just a small cross-section of our very favorites. Keep in mind, if you didn't see your favorite here, more often than not, our editorial guides, which tend to build in far more picks, always have the ones we have to leave out for time. And by chance, if you don't see your favorite there either, let us know below. We'd love to hear from you.